Oh, my need for justice in this dynamic, my need of like to show, to have like fairness like shown, and like I felt like so like I experienced such an injustice, and this is something I'm probably going to struggle with my whole life. I mean, it's just something for me that like I'm always seeking fairness, but to that point I had to really come to terms with like I'm not going to get that from this person. I'm not. And as long as I continue to hang on to it, it keeps me prisoner. She's not hanging on to it. It keeps me prisoner with myself. And as soon as I started to let that go, like it was, oh my gosh, like my chest expanded. Like I could just feel the relief.
Welcome to Grow with Robin Breckenridge, a podcast about stepping into the most fully expressed, aligned, and conscious version of yourself. Here, we dive into the real work of personal growth, establishing boundaries, understanding your patterns, building self-trust, healing emotional wounds, and creating relationships that feel safe, authentic, and fulfilling. I'm Robin, a life and relationship coach, and in each episode, we'll explore the tools, insights, and conversations that will help you not just improve your life and relationships, but truly transform them. You don't have to just go through it. Let's grow through it. And let's do it together. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. Today, I think I say this every time I have a guest, but it's a really meaningful one for me today. I'm sitting down with someone who has done this work deeply in her own life and now supports other women through some of the most challenging relationship dynamics there are. Elise is a strategic consultant who works with women going through high conflict divorces, especially when narcissistic patterns are involved. Thank you, Lord, for doing this work, Elise. She also has a background in family law, so she understands these situations from both a practical and emotional lens. And before we get into the conversation, I want to share a little bit about Elise from my perspective. Ready, Elise?
I'm ready.
Elise is someone Elise is someone I would describe as both brave and deeply committed to what she wants in her life. Whether it's her competitive equestrian riding or starting and running an animal rescue, she moves towards things with a level of intention that you don't see very often. She's also someone who will move towards situations most people would avoid. I have seen this firsthand. I am lucky enough to frequent her animal rescue. And one time there was a horse that was having a really hard day because I think he was new, if I remember correctly. Yeah. And this horse leapt through a wooden fence in front of my face. And I started backing up and Elise ran into the field, into a horse that everyone would run from. So that gives you Elise in a nutshell. Elise is the person that when there is chaos or intensity is going to actually move towards that with a level of bravery that is honestly very impressive to witness. So there have been many moments, especially with horses, where I have seen her step in, stay present, and she does what's needed even when it's hard. She's also brought some really meaningful relationships into my life. So Elise is someone that I've worked with professionally. I also call her a friend, and we have a lot of things in common, including the animals in your rescue. And I fell in love and developed very deep relationships with two animals on your property. And I'm so grateful to you that you allowed me to have those connections. And then Elise and I walked through the grief of losing those animals together. And I'm so grateful for that experience as well. So watching her do her own healing work over the years and then turn that work into now supporting other women has been truly a gift for me to be able to witness. So please welcome Elise Iafrate to Grow with Robin. Hi, Elise.
Hi. Thank you. That was a lovely introduction. Thank you.
I love to give my own bio of my guests when they come on, and I am so grateful for our friendship, for the work that we've done together. So I'm going to hop right in if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
okay,
for
awesome.
Sure.
So I would love to know what led you to working with me and the emotional work that you've done.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would like to try to give you as many like practical, like real life examples, because I feel like that's what people relate to most. So, it was about 4 years ago now, I think, and time flies. But I I was involved in a business endeavor with a best friend who is no longer a best friend, but at the time was a best friend of about 15 years. And um, it was related to my horses. And so we took our friendship and we decided to go into business together, her and her husband and me, myself and mine. And I knew, I think I had some deep awareness that there was something probably not quite right for me in the friendship, but it was not something I was willing to really look at or address at the time because there were just so many other variables that it felt really scary for me to do that. So point being, that's kind of a little background, but I stepped into the business aspect of it. So money became involved. And I think once I tied money to this dynamic and I felt this intense investment and just the glaring differences in our personalities and I don't know, some of the imbalances of the relationship itself started to really show up for me. And I don't use this term like lightly, but I feel like it's the closest I've come to having a true emotional breakdown. Like I had done a lot of talk therapy in my past to deal with a lot of my own lived experience with high conflict personalities and narcissism. And I mentioned that because I think that this was somewhat of a narcissistic dynamic, but I didn't realize it. And it was like my body could not live in this toxicity anymore. And it was hitting me on a level deeper than like what my brain could just kind of parse out. And I hit a massive wall. I mean, I truly, like I wanted to like flee my house, flee my life, flee everything. And it wasn't because I wanted to leave my house and husband. It had nothing to do with that, but I just wanted to get away. Anyway, a dear friend of ours, both of ours, Christine, who I've known forever and she's family to me, was like, you have to talk to Robin. Like, that's just it. You have to talk to Robin. She will help you. And so I knew you, but I didn't know really what you did or how you worked, and just knew you from being at my house, you know, with the animals. And so I remember reaching out, and the rest is history. You've changed my life. Like, I am a different human because of our work together.
Oh my goodness. Well, I couldn't be more honored. So I'll give a little context because it sounds like I just hang out at your animal.
Yeah, you're just like, I need you because you're stalking my farm.
I would do. But to make it even more random, I know Elise through my beloved personal trainer, who is an amazing friend as well. And during COVID, obviously gyms close, and my fear-based voice was like, I'm going to lose my body and all the work I put into it and, you know, whatever. And then Christine calls me one day and goes, do you want to work out at this horse rescue, like outside, because we could be outside? And, you know, the owner allowed us, and I knew who you were at the time. I didn't know you well. And I was like, wait, is that like, have the heavens parted for the most perfect situation for me ever? So I would go to your house, and I mean, your property that you had before and now they're both magical. There's just magical things that go on there. So I started working out there 2 to 3 times a week. And, so I was on your property all the time. Yes, and I remember Christine coming to me and she said, I need you to work with Elise. And I was like, you know, it's a little close. Like, you're close to her. And she was like, just please do it. And I would come to your barn and we would sit in like little
in person and like folding chairs. Yeah.
Right. And we started talking about where you were. And I mean, to think about where you are now. And I mean, was that 4 years ago that we started working? I think it was
together? almost 4 years ago. And I feel like I'm a different person. Like, I look back on that version of myself and I remember sitting there in that folding chair, and I'm pretty sure I was like sitting like this, and they're like, you know, like I was so closed in and closed down. And the funny thing is like I said, I had gone through 13 years of therapy. Like, I thought I was in a place that was, I don't know, I don't want to use the word evolved, but like, I thought I had done a lot of healing, and I had, but not nearly, it was not the same type. And there was so much more like inner child and inner teenager and young adult and inner experiential work that I needed to do that I didn't even know needed to be done until we met.
Yeah, I remember sitting on the folding chairs and you kind of telling me what was going on. And I was like, ooh, boundaries. Oh, that's an easy one. We can talk about that, right?
What's that? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think what you're talking about, and this is so relatable for people, is like, it doesn't mean the work you did before didn't count or wasn't good and effective, but trauma lives in our body. And so something about that situation was activating something that already was there. Right. And we can think in our head we've healed, but 4 years in and you're a different person. Have you gone through the finish line of healing? I haven't yet.
No, I don't know that we ever do. Right. Like that's what I now realize is like, it's not linear. It's not like there's not an end point to it. And quite honestly, I don't think I would have been ready for the work that you and I did together had I not had the previous. So like, I think it was all meant to be in the time that it was, and that I was finally to a point where I was ready for that. And I do think that some of those relationships kept showing up in my life because I needed to work through them.
So perfect. You're segueing me into my next question, which is looking back at that time, and I know now it seems like so far away, but yet not that long ago either. But what were some of the patterns that you couldn't see at the time that you now recognize were happening and contributing to that breakdown? Or I call it a bottom. I think bottoms are beautiful, but it's just that place where we're sick of our own shit and we can't continue on that way.
Well, I think there were a couple patterns, and it wasn't just in that relationship. It was throughout my whole life. I really lived in a state of being angry a lot. Like I was just angry a lot, and things would irritate me, and I would feel this, I don't know, I would just be in this unsettled, state of anger. And I now have some awareness around that, which we can, talk about at some point if you want. I think another pattern was codependency. I was really concerned all the time with how the other person felt because I constantly sought outside validation. And I didn't realize how much I did that, but I was looking for this outside attention, outside validation. And if this person gave this to me, then okay, then I'm part of that inner circle, or I'm more valued somehow, or that helped define me. So I had this codependency pattern going on. And those are the two biggest ones that stand out to me. I mean, you might remember other ones, but those two really stood out.
I think you covered it. And both are leading you back to boundary work, right? That
yes.
Anger was letting you know you didn't have appropriate boundaries to protect yourself.
I didn't know. And that was the interesting thing, is I didn't know that I didn't have boundaries. It's interesting for me to reflect on that, because I had done all of this work. I have lived in a very professionally successful environment. I thought that I was confident and thought that I had self-esteem and all of these things, and that I was independent and all of these things. And I equated all of that to somehow having, I don't know, I guess maybe I equated that to boundaries. I never thought about it. But as we started working together, I'm I'm angry because now I realize that anger is because I'm being violated, and my body's telling me you're being violated right now. Something is violating what aligns for you. And I felt a lot of anger towards others, but I soon came to understand that a lot of that anger I felt was towards myself for not kind of showing up for myself and saying, no, this is not okay. We have to set a boundary, and setting a boundary doesn't have to be this big, grand, cut you off the face of the earth and burn the bridge. But that's kind of in my head what I think I thought. And I mean, I've since learned otherwise, but yeah, that anger, I now welcome the anger because it tells me something's wrong here. But I also now know how to, kind of address it, but to live in it, I was living in that state.
So, to rewind back to that time of your life, I feel like something that's happened to you throughout your life is people don't always understand you. They don't always understand your heart, or, who you are internally. because sometimes when we don't realize that those angers or that the anger is like signaling that we need a boundary, we'll tolerate, and then our teenager will come in.
Girl,
and she, she might, it doesn't even have to be that she's like super combative, but it might be in your energy. It might be in shortness, right? And I think that was kind of a cycle you were shifting out of too, where like maybe you wouldn't realize it. Your teenager would come in to protect you. And then Elise is like the bad guy because she's bitchy or, whatever. So it's so beautiful because boundary work is so layered. That boundary work is grief work. Boundary work is learning how to manage feelings like anger. And also, I had a therapist one time. I think this is so relatable to you. I'm not sure if I ever told you, but she said to me, oh, Robin, you like the broken ones. Like you like the ones that are like hurt, and it's true. Like I know you have a house full of hurt and broken animals.
Yeah.
I have a couple at my house, and that was something that I was also doing in my personal relationships was like, I was finding the ones that were broken, or hurt or wounded and not protecting myself appropriately enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, that definitely resonates for me. I feel like in addition to that, I mean, I know I said this before, I feel like I was really seeking out subconsciously these same dynamics so I could heal from them. Right. Like, and it took me 47 years. Like it took me to age 47 to finally hit that bottom. Because now I can more readily see where I need the boundary, and my inner teenager now has, I've been able to give her more what she needs. So she doesn't, it's been really profound. So she doesn't show up as much, but to your point, like, I mean, she showed up a lot. Like, she has some opinions, and and she didn't know how to establish boundaries correctly. Like she was never taught that.
Sure. And, I think things are normalized to us growing up sometimes, or in certain relationships that we've been exposed to. So what were you normalizing back then that you would never normalize now?
Ooh, well, obviously lack of boundaries. That's just like I almost, and for me, it's like a direct relation to if I feel disrespected. So if I feel disrespected in some way in the past where I probably would have, I know I did, I would put my rose colored glasses on and I would try to find a way to explain it away or, somehow give the other person the benefit of the doubt, but it never like felt right. Like I would do that because it was the easier path than to approach the situation with the person. And just because I might have felt disrespected doesn't mean that person had to be extricated from my life. It could have just involved like a simple conversation, but I would never go down that road because it, again, required a boundary that I was not comfortable doing. And so these became like these big, like these big gestures for me, right? So in the past, I would just kind of accept disrespect and like let it go on and on and on and on. And then by the time I would like blow, so to speak, like there was no salvaging it because I had like spent so much time like being resentful and angry about it. So disrespect for sure in relation to establishing boundaries.
Then you don't need your fingers to come out.
Right. Yeah. And speaking of, and it's sorry, now I'm a little bit off track. I'm like thinking of all these things. That's the biggest one that I think of when of like things that I used to do. The misunderstanding piece is a big one. I think I used to always, that has been a huge one for me. Like I hated feeling misunderstood. It drove me bonkers. And now I realize that if I'm misunderstood, and I've done what I can to, communicate clearly and do my piece in it. If I am then still misunderstood, it's either because that person, for whatever reason, wants to misunderstand me or has their own perception of who I am or a past version of me that they've written a narrative around, and there's not a lot I can do about that. or they're just not capable for whatever reason. And if they're not capable, then they're probably not really someone that's going to be in my everyday circle. So does it really matter if I misunderstood? Like, it's taken me a long time, but now we're in the past. I feel like I used to like have this like quest to like fix that. Now I'm just kind of, I mean, I still don't love being misunderstood, but I accept it because I know who I am. Yeah, I know who I am, and I like who I am now.
I think one of the most healing things I've done for myself is allow people to be wrong about me. But I never want to sell it that like it's a pleasant experience. Like it always stings and it doesn't feel good, but there's something so empowering about me knowing me and that being enough that like someone else can be wrong. But I want to like touch on something, and I think it's going to lead us into the work that you're doing now too. My story is very similar to yours and what you just shared, but where it was the hardest to like advocate for respect and have boundaries for me has always been in relationships with people that have or are on a spectrum of a personality disorder. Like most of the time I could be like, yo, we're not doing that. Right. But it's like, when someone, you know, I'll speak from my experience, like borderline personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, or any of the behaviors that are very similar to those, that's where it was really hard for me to like execute these tools and awarenesses that I have.
Yeah.
And I think that's true for a lot of people. And I think it's why having somebody like you or me who's been through it myself and working with people is so important, because unless you've been through narcissistic abuse type of situations, it's really hard to understand it.
Oh my gosh. Like yeah, I mean, my husband is I'm not married to a narcissist. Thank you, Lord, at this moment. And I'm very grateful for the husband that I have. And I come from, you know, I mean, a family, I will say, that had a lot of narcissistic personality traits involved. And I do want to preface and say that, you know, I'm not a licensed therapist. I'm not a psychologist. The term narcissistic personality disorder, like I think it's thrown around a lot, like with carelessness a little bit. And so when I refer to all of these things, obviously I'm referring to the personality traits that normally show up in this situation. Yeah. But I'm not technically diagnosing, but I grew up in an environment with a lot of these traits and different types of narcissism, not just one. So I, you know, experienced grandiose, I experienced vulnerable, which most people refer to as covert. And I think and whether it's a familial situation, whether it's a romantic situation, those two specifically, or even like a work dynamic, but I think really familial and romantic, you find yourself in these situations where they're not so easy just to extricate from. And so you have to develop these survival skills. And I think some of those survival skills is to not establish boundaries, because you don't know what you're going to get if you stick up for yourself. And so there's this fear of, well, and I know from experience, you know, it's like, well, if I open my mouth, if I say my piece, like, it's not a normal dynamic that someone wants to hear what I have to say or think. Like, I'm probably going to be attacked for it. Like, if anyone's dealt with these personalities, you know, I mean, there's the term DARVO, where it's defend, reverse, attack, victim, offender. Like, it's often turned on you and it's switched. And like, it's just easier in the moment sometimes to survive it by giving up what you need. And so I think for me, at least, that's what I learned. And so I never learned boundaries.
Yeah. So I haven't shared on the podcast yet, so I'll like cue it up, but there's something called the pillow analogy. And I'm sure I've shared this with you before, Elise. But it's very similar to what you're saying. Like, you know, in a healthy relationship, if you can envision 3 pillows on the ground, one pillow is your pillow, middle pillow is the relationship pillow, other pillow is the other person's pillow. In a healthy relationship, everybody keeps one foot on their pillow, one foot on the relationship pillow, other person, one foot on their pillow, one foot on the relationship pillow, which really means that you are still connected to you and in relationship to you, but you're open for connection in the relationship as well. In codependency, which is what narcissists love to be in a relationship with somebody who's willing to abandon themselves, in those dynamics, we will leave our pillow and we will go sometimes on the relationship pillow or the middle pillow, try to control that. Or sometimes we'll go and try to control the person on their pillow. And it doesn't always have to be like what we would, think of control. It doesn't mean like I'm telling this person what to do. It might be I'm altering what I'm doing to impact the outcome. My experience with narcissism, you hold them accountable, it's not going to go well for you.
No, right.
You are much better off to leave your pillow. And this is what a lot of trauma survivors are good at. We're good at walking in a room and reading the weather of the room and then adjusting to it.
Yeah.
Right. And then sometimes we let people on our pillow and we let them control us. Now in narcissistic dynamics, that's survival. So like what you were saying about sitting in those little folding chairs is like your head knew maybe what was going on and had some tools, but your body was like, oh my God, I'm back in the same situation.
Exactly.
I'm stuck in it again and I have to survive it. But something, because you had an adult part of you on board, was like, and now I'm in so much pain.
Exactly. Like I knew I had, my 13 years of regular cognitive talk therapy had opened up awareness. Like I knew I was aware of what I had dealt with growing up. And in subsequent relationships, I was aware. I could label it. I could see it in those dynamics. But what it never really addressed was like, that inner part of me when you feel like, okay, I get it, but like I can't feel it. Like I can't connect my heart and my head. And that's the piece that was missing for me when I came to you, and that I needed to kind of heal. I needed to figure out. And it was that the little girl in me, right? Or the teenager that had to step up and say, okay, I'm either going to drive you forward out of sheer desperation and will, or you're going to like literally just fall into a puddle and do nothing with your life. And so she drove me forward, but she never had a chance to, like to be a teenager, and she was just always my protector.
Yeah.
And she had to be, because I was in a dynamic that I couldn't speak my piece. I had to constantly attend to other people's feelings and agendas.
So I've shared this with you personally, but I told Elise before, when we do this kind of work, I'm a pretty firm believer that you are attracting past versions of yourself. And this is why you are one reason this episode's special to me. But the other is when I was in a narcissistic relationship in the early 2000s, when, maybe there was one page on narcissism. And I remember it said, they're monsters. They're not human. They don't feel. And I remember being like, he pulled over one time and helped someone on the side of the road, and he's so nice to animals. And so I was like, well, he can't be a narcissist. And so confusing. So confusing. And I love that there's a lot of information. I know that sometimes it's misinterpreted, but I think it's important because I'm not a huge fan of labels. I don't know that they always are super helpful, but I do think they're helpful when you're dealing with personalities like this, because the behaviors are so similar, and it helps to kind of depersonalize that, like, okay, this is like a behavioral trait that's going on. It's not me or my fault.
Yes, I agree. I mean, it's the behaviors, like I feel like in these personalities, are so identifiable. Yeah. But what's sad to me, and this is why I so want to help women, because I've lived it, and it just, is that when you're in it, like you can logically know some of that, but the damage of the toxicity that what it does to your body and just your overall feeling of self, and the amount of times you've had to abandon yourself to survive the moment, it still is just debilitating. So it's like I have said many times when I've been in those dynamics, I know, it's not me, but it's but I didn't feel that. I still internalize the behavior and staying in it. I think that there's also this I understand why most of us stay in it longer than we want to, but I think that there's also pieces of us that probably judge ourselves for staying in it longer than we want to. Right. So it all affects this self-worth the self-worth and love that we have for ourselves.
So something that I'll use with clients that I think is really helpful is the emotional pain scale, because it's really I even remember back in like the 90s when talk shows were like all the rage, you know, and I would see people on like abusive relationships or whatever, and they would be like, you know, the audience members, why are
Jerry
you
Springer.
staying? Yeah. I did not watch Jerry Springer, but like so I loved me some Sally Jesse Raphael.
Oh yeah. I mean, basically
Ricky Lake, whoever, you know?
Yes, Rick, yes, so good. But
it would be like these people would be like, why are you staying? And I remember being young, being like, why would someone stay? And then I got myself involved in one. So the pain scale basically says that, like, you know, just like if you go into the ER, we have emotional pain that we don't often quantify, right? So when we grew up in toxic or dysfunctional relational environments growing up, like we kind of stay at a 7 on the pain scale, which 10 would be like, I want to die. I'm in so much pain. 1 would be like, I'm not in any pain. Right. So we stay in 7 because it's familiar, like being confused, you know, someone yelling and screaming at you or, you know, expressing rage towards you is all familiar, and we attract what's familiar regardless of merit. So when someone's in an abusive dynamic, there's a high likelihood this is something they experienced before to some degree, right? Mm-hmm. In my case, I actually brought an exaggerated version of something I experienced growing up. So I brought something that was worse into my life, but I still had a tolerance for it. So when all of that activation is up, like somebody is rejecting you or unavailable or whatever, in order to leave that relationship, you have to elect to go up the pain scale. You have to address some of those feelings that are keeping you there in the first place, right? Like you got to walk up to rejection, take your power back, walk up to abuse, take your power back, right? That's
absolutely.
What people say.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's so hard to do. And we don't, to your point, like we're familiar with a lot of those feelings, and we've learned how to survive in them. And it's sometimes easier just to do that. But I've come to see it as, you're either, you know, you're choosing pain one way or another, right? So it's either pain now of trying to address it and take some control back. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy because it's so hard. But there's like a sliver of light in that approach because you're doing it for yourself, or you're choosing to delay pain by continuing to live in the pain that you're currently in. But I'm saying delay it because it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. Most of these relationships escalate.
Yep.
I think another reason why we do sometimes stay goes back to what you had mentioned before in your situation where you said, oh, well, I saw him helping an animal, or you saw these positive behaviors. And I mean, that's, and some of these terms I'm using, I'm studying under Dr. Amani, one of her certification classes. So some of it is her, she's like this renowned psychologist in narcissism. She's amazing. And there's a trauma bond that happens because if all of us met a narcissist on their worst day, even those empaths and those of us who are used to it, we would know better, right? We would be like, no. Like
if they were the broken ones, we'd know.
Yeah. So you'd be like, no. Like you're okay. Like I'm not that. Like I get. Like no. But they don't approach us that way. Like we don't see that side of them. Now, do we? Are they maybe showing some red flags along the way? Is there love bombing? Is there certain things? Like sure, but like it's so easy to miss those for other behaviors too, and. A lot of narcissists are not, I mean, they're the personality is very smart. And sometimes the narcissism is only directed towards one person in their life. And so my point is you experience these like fantastic feelings with them and fantastic experiences. And there's this piece that keeps like, when the bad starts, once they have some hold on you and they're the control, and then they feel comfortable, like, showing the negative parts, the damaging parts, this trauma bond keeps you hoping. And that's the cycle. It keeps you hoping and wishing for like, well, the good's going to show up again. And maybe next time it'll stay, and maybe it'll stay longer. And I've seen him help the animals, and I've seen him be nice to the old person on the road and whatever it is. Right. And so I think the trauma bond in conjunction with what we were just saying, like the familiar and not wanting to face the pain. And let's face it, the fear. I mean, there is like extreme fear for most of us in romantic relationships that are, especially with kids involved, that are looking to get out. I mean, there's so many unknowns, and I could go off on this with whatever the work I'm doing now, but there's so many unknowns. I mean, there's I know there's so much.
I'm just going to say one thing and then I'm going to lead you into a question, but I feel the same way. Like, you are going to be in pain either way if you stay or you leave. One of them is purpose driven. One of them is leading you towards the life that you want, maybe to have peace and esteem. The other one is just re-traumatizing you, but pain regardless. So Elise, tell me, like, what are some things that you see often with women navigating high conflict or narcissistic dynamics?
Yeah. So do you mind if I give a little bit of context for
you do you, girl,
what I'm doing? Okay. So I see this because the work that I'm doing with women is for women who are typically navigating this in the context of a divorce. And I maintain I'm a licensed attorney. I just don't practice anymore. And I say this related to divorce because I was a family law attorney. And I chose to step away from it for various reasons that don't really matter for this. But when I started helping a friend of mine step into, she knew she had to leave her husband and she was terrified. I mean, paralyzed. And so, and to answer your question, this is what I see with a lot of women. She didn't know how to start. She was terrified of what he was going to do, whether it be physically, from a safety perspective. She was terrified of like the verbal fallout. There was the emotional, the psychological abuse. So many women experience just this, like, the gaslighting, the turning it around on them, the not being allowed to have an opinion, to have a voice, to literally having narratives rewritten about themselves that have never been true, but now are suddenly, like, written. Yes. Like, I mean, so much manipulation. It's like almost hard for me to articulate sometimes. So I try to use it by way of example. But so many of these of women just experience this crazy making. I call it crazy making behavior. Like, it literally makes you feel crazy, where you're like, am I losing it? Like, did I not just say that? Or did that, or did I just see him hide my phone and then tell me you're an idiot for losing your phone? Like, I mean, stuff like just crazy, and where you feel like you're talking to a brick wall, and you try over, and women will try over and over to explain. And like, I just need him to understand my perspective, or I just need to reason. And none of that happens. You cannot reason with this personality. Like, I tell all my clients, like, we have to stop. We have to stop playing the game that way, because we have to change the way we communicate. So many of them just feel this intense paralyzation. And so anyway, so my work with them in the divorce context is just that, like, how to help them manage these kind of like triage moments of, oh my God, what do I do? Like, what do I do? How do I handle my kids in this? How do I handle how he's going to react? And because they've dealt with all of this walking on eggshells and, like, oh my God, what's going to happen next feelings.
Yeah. Well,
and
I would assume they're conditioned to not make them uncomfortable or upset them, and leaving is just about the most upsetting thing you could do. And God forbid you have children with them that they own.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Well, and I've yet to see a situation where the children are not used as leverage by the narcissist for the sole reason that they know that is what, and I'm talking like in a woman-man situation, but obviously it can apply across genders, but where the narcissist knows that those children are what matters to the spouse, to the woman leaving, and they use it as leverage. I've yet to see that not happen. And
same. I've walked a lot of people through. I've always.
Yeah, because they know that's going to get you, right? Like they're like, oh, that's your weak spot. We're going to go there. It's really,
because you care about the kids almost more than anything.
And they know that.
Yeah. So
these will be the fathers that weren't. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No.
These will be the fathers that weren't really necessarily even hands-on fathers, right? That weren't necessarily there, but suddenly we're going through divorce, and now we're father of the year, and we want equal custody. It's very upsetting for the women. Yeah.
As a punishment to like, it has nothing to do with the well-being of the kids.
No,
everything to do with them. But I'm just sitting here listening and just so happy you're doing this work, because I know for the work that I do, it's just really, you know, trauma means we were alone in a really overwhelming, scary, traumatic situation. But the alone part is key. And I think that, you know, trying to go to court against someone who's conditioned you to put them on a pedestal and to be afraid of them and to try to manage them over everything is terrifying. So to have someone like you that knows the law, has also experienced these dynamics yourself, and then has done the type of work that you've done, which is really what a lot of these women need. You know, they need to learn how to manage that fear, how to stay empowered. So I just wanted to mention something about love bombing, because love bombing was so confusing to me. And of course, we're talking about narcissists, but please know that, like, if somebody's toxic in your life and you don't think they're a narcissist, but some of these behaviors apply, like, listen up.
Go across different personalities.
Yeah, because we're here to help. But love bombing for me was not a red flag until I really got curious with it. I thought that was about the best thing I ever experienced in my life.
Right. Oh my, yeah.
Because I think to people that have experienced neglect, it feels like you are at a fine dining buffet.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And there is just so much food. You don't need to worry about the food. You know, you got so much of it. And then all of a sudden it's taken away. And that's where that intermittent reinforcement comes in. And I believe that in my experience in my own life, and when I see people walking through this, is probably the most addictive vortex I have ever seen personally.
Yeah. I mean, how can it not be? Right? Like, most of us, if we're in, I mean, I have been victim to it. Absolutely. And most of us have, whether it's the extent that, like, we're talking about here today with our own past or not, most of us have some level, something that's happened in our past. We all have some level of trauma somewhere. And I mean, I think there's varying degrees. So my point is, I think we're all, and I think we're human. Like, we are human. We're all susceptible to, it feels great to have someone look at you like you're like the best thing that ever graced this earth and planet, and to shower you with attention and affection and all. Like, it feels good. Like, it's hard to be like, whoa, like, that's, yeah, don't do that. Like, I'm going to need you to tone it down. Like, that's not a typical reaction. So
no, but I didn't know until after. I was like, oh, if someone wants to buy you a car right away. Like, I was like, I must be something special. And then I was like, oh, that pace is not sustainable. Also, that level of intensity isn't too trusted, right? But you go into it, and man, I was like lapping it up. It felt like a whole meal. And then your feet are out from underneath you before you know it.
Yeah, I think that too, because, like, I think of I'll just use my life as an example. I think of my relationship now, and Paul was, I'm laughing because he was one of the most persistent people I've ever dated. I mean, pursuers. And in some ways I'd be like, he kind of love bombed me. Now I was a little bit more like this in general at this point, but I think there's that difference between that, like, intense infatuation and then, like, the toxic love bombing. And I think sometimes the way you see the difference is if you try to hold the person accountable for something that they might have done or said, or, like, has misunderstood you in some way, or they do something that, I don't know, just feels a little off, and you're, like, trying to understand it. I think the reaction to that tells you a lot about maybe the personality you're dealing with. And I'm not saying that that's going to, like, say, oh, okay, well, that's love bombing instead of infatuation. But I think sometimes when there are those moments and people ask me, like, well, what are the red flags? Like, what do I need to be looking for? Because, I mean, is it love bombing, or is it just like this intensity of excitement? And I always kind of point to, like, is there accountability being taken somewhere for something? Because normally at some point in any relationship, there's a misunderstanding, or there's something that needs to be communicated about. And and I've seen, obviously, there's blatant lack of accountability that happens, which is super obvious, but that's often not the case with these personalities. They would do that, obviously up front. But what I have seen women experience, at least in new relationships, is the person will be like, oh, well, they'll turn it back on the woman in this, in this case, and just say, well, I think you're misunderstanding. I think you're misunderstanding what I was trying to say or do, or like, I'm just trying to be, a good father, or I'm just trying to be good with my kids. And that's why I wasn't available, or that's why I wasn't, like, there's excuses, there's like a victimization, there's a turning it around on you where you're kind of left feeling like, okay, well, I see what you're saying. Logically, I suppose I could make sense of that, but it doesn't feel right? Like, it doesn't align with your gut. Like, it's just, that's normally a sign.
Well, I think it's so hard, right? Like in the pillow analogy, it's like we left ourselves. So for me, there along with the love bombing, there were so many other things that were going on that even at 21 years old, I was like, this is off, like something's wrong. But that was distracting me because the intensity of it felt so good.
Yeah. But isn't it interesting that even at 21, I mean, and we're saying this now in our 40s, but that without as much life experience, that even then, like, our bodies will often tell us like something's up.
I have my journal from that time. And when I reflected back, I was like, what a dummy. Why was I so? And then I'm reading the journal entries going, this chick fucking knew. I knew, but I also was desensitized to some bad behavior, and I was caught up in it already.
And we don't want to see it.
No, but I always tell people, and this goes for narcissistic relationships or not, I've had a lot of people come in here and they'll be like, Robin, I met the one, we have the same childhood trauma. And I'll be like, you guys met at the club. Right. And you don't talk till 5 a.m, whatever. But like, I'll always tell people, okay, but did you see him activated yet? Because that is when we see the maturity, whether somebody is compatible with your nervous system. Like, yes, this person was trying to buy me a car. He was also disappearing for days at a time and, going off with other women. And it's like, I was so distracted by all the other, plus it activated something in me where like, I wanted to earn that love. Like that was so familiar for me, I feel like that's often, that is like, I feel like that rings really true for me growing up, it was more the attention in these familial relationships where I'm like, I still wanted to like seek out this like validation from still these personalities. And even now I look at it, I'm like, it's really amazing how these personalities do this. Like it's, it's just like how the process, and like, I guess those of us who fall, susceptible or victim to it, but it's wanting to earn, it's that feeling of like, I want you to love me. And then what happens, like you said, like they give you enough, right? It's like, well, I'm going to distract you by saying, look how awesome I am, I'm going to buy you a car. But then when I'm gone, like you can't really question me about that because, but look what I did for you. Yeah, right. It's hard to make sense of it in your head. More than anyone has ever, I care about you more than anyone.
Exactly.
So I didn't know about boundaries then. I didn't have the boundary pyramid. I had never heard the term relational integrity in my life. If you guys want to have a great vetting system of who to call into your life, if someone doesn't have relational integrity, meaning that they can do something to you and go to bed later or look at that mug in the mirror, because I know now I do have relational integrity. If I treated someone badly, I wouldn't be able to sleep. I wouldn't be able to look myself in the mirror. That is a really good indicator. When somebody can go disappear and hook up with your friends or, treat you in a way and never repair or be accountable, that is a lack of relational integrity, and good fucking luck with that.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be a narcissist for that.
No. And and this is the hard thing, like when we're talking about narcissists, like, and so that's why sometimes I use it interchangeably with high conflict, because I think like the traits of narcissism so often also show up with other disorders, right? So bipolar, borderline, again, I'm not a psychologist, so I don't want to get into it, but like all of it.
Mood disorders,
depression, a lot of times like addiction is part of this too, like alcohol, drugs. So like there's so many variant factors in it. But I dare sometimes so far as to say that, to your point, like if someone who can treat you that way and go to bed with a clean conscience, to me, borders on psychopathy. Like, there's a lack of empathy there that is disturbing. right? And a lack of awareness. It's, yeah.
And that might be that version of your 7 on the pain scale, that people were mean to you or cruel or never repaired. I mean, that's where, like, you know, if you are in one of these dynamics, I highly encourage you to, even if it is talk therapy, you know, there's some great talk therapists out there, whether it's working with a coach, or we have so many people now in this industry specifically dealing with narcissistic abuse. But I'm going to bring it back to some of the concepts that you've learned in your life and you're practicing. So how do you set boundaries with someone who doesn't honor them? It's kind of a trick question, Elise.
Yes, I know. Like if there's like a magic wand for how that can happen.
Lobotomy.
Yeah. I mean, I think that you have to set boundaries. I think boundaries are set with yourself. And so you communicate them with the other person, but they're truly boundaries that you set with yourself, right? So you say to yourself, like, this is what I'm okay with dealing with. And if that person cannot respect that boundary or will not hear you, I'm going to go so far as to just say that person probably should not be in your life. Now, I'm going from A to Z because especially if this is a spouse, like it's not always that easy, but it's an eye opener, right? Like, so you do the best you can in a dynamic, and I'm talking about now like a dynamic like that, where you do the best you can to keep yourself safe always, but to say, okay, there's certain, maybe you have to say to yourself, like there's certain, like, here is my hard line. Like, this is what I'm not going to be okay with. And if that person crosses that boundary, like they just continually refuse to accept, like talking to you a certain way or talking badly about you in front of the kids or something, you have some, and you can communicate to them. If you're able to safely do it, just be like, okay, well, we're not talking about this anymore. And you leave the house, or you take the kids and you leave the house for a few hours. You do something to, I guess, extricate yourself, because trying to reason with that person, trying to convince them, it's just never going to happen. It's just never going to happen. And my advice to most people at the end of the day is we have to strategize a way to just extricate from this dynamic. There's, in my opinion, like there's just really no other way. Like we can figure out how to manage it with communication and stuff, but we're not changing this person. They're very rarely ever changed in therapy. Like it's just, if they don't respect your boundaries, I don't think there's much of a, where is this relationship really going to go?
Yeah, I think if they don't, you have to, right? And it's hard.
Yeah, you have to have your bound, right? Yeah, I mean, I can I bunt the question back to you? Because
Sure.
what do you do? Like it's, if someone's just like, I don't really care. Like,
I don't think I think the only boundary is protection, right? Like, I mean, otherwise you're just going to live in survival mode. And there might be people who can't leave, maybe it's for financial reasons or for whatever reason. And then in that case, like I always tell people, like, you're in a burning building and get your backpack with the right gear and, do what you can to like get by. But I would never encourage anyone to stay in survival mode. Your nervous system will never
can't handle it.
Calm, but I think, the boundary pyramid sometimes is a really great tool for people that are in these relationships, because I'll have them put that person in a category and, no contact is reserved for people that are emotionally and or physically unsafe. Well, if somebody doesn't respect you and you can't have boundaries and honor yourself and take care of yourself and protect yourself, that's not emotionally safe. So sometimes just going, you have someone you're in a marriage with that would otherwise be in no contact, or you have someone in shared interest or trust who actually, and trust is not real. That would be the delusion. I'm not saying ever put somebody in trust that you can't have boundaries and take care of yourself. But it's just usually like a good visual for someone to go, oh my God, I have someone who is terribly unsafe for me in these categories and I'm not protected. So to me, I always tell everybody that's in these type of dynamics that the winning is in getting away.
Yeah.
There is this thing that comes into play in these dynamics, where you want to win. And of course, that's from an unconscious, more like ego-based version of you. And what I always tell people is if someone does not have empathy, if someone is never going to touch accountability with a 100-foot pole, you're never going to win. You have a conscience. They are always going to drop lower than you can. And the winning is in getting away. And I remember telling you that a long time ago.
Say, like, well, I remember so vividly in that the business dynamic that when I came to you with my friend at the time, and my need for justice in this dynamic, my need of like to show, to have like fairness like shown, and like I felt like so like I experienced such an injustice, and this is something I'm probably going to struggle with my whole life. I mean, it's just something for me that like I'm always seeking fairness, but to that point I had to really come to terms with like I'm not going to get that from this person. I'm not. And as long as I continue to hang on to it, it keeps me prisoner. She's not hanging on to it. It keeps me prisoner with myself. And as soon as I started to let that go, like it was, oh my gosh, like my chest expanded. Like I could just feel the relief, but there is that. I think some of that is when we finally see it for what it is and we make a choice to move in a direction of extricating ourselves, we're allowing ourselves, I can speak for myself, like allowing ourselves to feel that anger that we had bottled up for so long that we had to ignore. And now suddenly it's right there in front of us. And it's like, we just want to go back and like put all of that energy now into standing up for ourselves. And unfortunately, it doesn't work that way with those personalities.
No, I think, sorry.
No, I would say the more you can get away from them, right? The more you can remove yourself from the dynamic, that is when like the true healing starts, because it's so hard to do in it. I mean, it's so hard to see clearly, to think clearly. Your nervous system in those situations is on such intense flight mode and just dysregulation that it can't possibly give you clear-headed thinking and healing. No,
and that's why it's great to bring, someone who's neutral in it, because I tell a lot of people, especially when they're going through a divorce process with someone like this, like, let's get some realistic expectations. Fair is not a realistic expectation. There's nothing fair about these people. No. These people are completely self-focused. So if we just go in with some realistic expectations, some bottom lines, and then now, like you're saying, the work starts after. It's like, now we get to move towards peace. I think one of my favorite things in working with you, Elise, was watching you experience peace.
Like the first time in my life.
Yeah, because you have a part of you, we call it the drill sergeant, right? That was really hard on you. And I think any of us that grew up with like somebody that was critical or could be mean, that voice will live in us, and it's no longer them. It's us. Right. And I had a big revelation when I was like, wow, the verbal abuse that went on in that relationship, I talked to myself worse. Right. It's the only way he got through. Was he, as bad as it wasn't even as bad as the way that I talked to myself or the way I thought about myself. Yeah, same. I mean, you really helped me realize that, I mean, I refer to my drill sergeant as a he. I mean, I had this drill sergeant on board that was like, holy shit. Like, I mean, now when I look back, I'm like, it was some tough shit that I would put myself through. I mean, it was not kind motivation, right? It was a driving me forward to perform and to perfect and to be the best, because that somehow validated who I was. But at some point, whereas maybe that's like the environment I grew up in, at some point it became myself doing that to myself. Like it was pretty, it's eye-opening for sure. Well, that's why it takes a little while to get that conditioned voice out. And in fact, I think I remember sending you a clip from like the Montel Williams show or something. Do you remember? Yeah, I vaguely remember that. I was like telling you, I was like, do you remember those talk shows? Because in the 90s, maybe early 2000s, they had that like camp thing where like if you were an out of control teenager, they would rip you out of your bed. Then drag you in a van, drag you to a camp, and then literally abuse you. Like that's what traumatized teenagers. hopefully we don't do that anymore, because that's a horrible approach for kids that are struggling. But that I remember they would come into like the Montel Williams room and they would be like, start yelling in the kid's face. And I was like, Elise, that's like what you have on board.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting, do you remember too, like when I started working through this, there was a point where I missed my drill sergeant.
Yes.
Then I got to a point where I was like, wait, like, I don't know how to live without this voice, like literally berating and driving me forward.
Because it felt like motivation. You didn't
It felt like motivation. Right.
Like, how do I motivate myself if it's not through the lens of fear and shame?
Yeah, it was really like, I just now reflecting back, I'm like, wow, it was really interesting. And now I've found a way to, self-motivate without that, but I'm much kinder to myself. I mean, I'm much, much kinder. Now I'm like, oh, you don't feel like doing that today? Like, okay. Cause I mean, for my case, it's probably more like, okay, you need to slow your roll, girl. Like you don't need to be going at like Mach 10 speed all the time. You can just take a day. So
I want you to be an example of like, look at how far you have come from the dynamics we're revisiting. And I know you mentioned that, something you see is people freeze or get stuck in these situations. So what would you say if there's somebody listening that feels stuck or paralyzed in a high conflict or narcissistic dynamic? What advice would you give them?
Yeah, I mean, my main advice is I think some of the feelings of paralyzation and fear come from the overwhelming feeling of the unknown and not knowing how something's going to play out, especially in the context I work in, especially if you're choosing to get divorced. And so, and you taught me this, instead of trying to look at everything all at once, that just becomes like, oh my gosh, like, how am I going to manage? We got to take one small bite. So like when I help clients initially, and many of them have already hired their attorney. And that's why I want to make that distinction is like the attorneys are not doing this work. And it is never me knocking attorneys because I am one and I've been in their role. It's just not their job to help clients strategize in this way. It's just their job is to deal with the procedure of divorce. So I would say if you can identify the first immediate step you need to take, right? So if that is making the decision you're going to leave, even if you don't know what that looks like, you've made a decision. Okay. We don't have to worry about how the rest of it looks. Make that decision, sit with it. Like, okay, that's what you did. Like that was step one. I mean, like truly like bite-sized points. Like if you're unsafe, then ask somebody and say, I need some help. Can you help me find someone who can help me with the PPO? Or I need to educate myself on a PPO. Like it's just bite-sized things. And what I find really amazing too is just reaching out to the people in your circle that you trust, that you can safely say to them, I need help. And I don't know that you can give me the exact help, but you would be shocked how people will start putting you in contact or just say, I heard so-and-so does this, or like, I know a friend who used a friend, like just start asking for people that you trust and say, I need help. Do you know any, like what can I do? Like just put it into the universe. But just that first step, right? Like you don't need to figure out all out right now.
You can't.
No, baby steps. One little step at a time. Yeah.
Yeah. But I love that, like, you are an example to anyone listening and probably a gift that there's people like you. It doesn't have to be your attorney, because realistically, at least in my experience with walking people through divorcing narcissist or high conflict people, they don't understand narcissism, and they don't really care too much about the backstory if it's not applicable to the court case, and they don't understand CPTSD and that you're walking into a courtroom with your abuser and all that goes along with that. So to have someone like you, and if there's one of you, there's more of you, if it's not you, but today you're here and they can connect with you, having an advocate through the process is just huge. When you told me the idea of this, I was like, yes.
Yeah. I mean, it really organically happened. Like I said, when I was helping my friend, and she had an attorney, I helped her find one. And it became very clear very quickly that I'm like, she is not receiving the support that she needs from the legal system. I mean, a lot of people go into it thinking their lawyer is going to be their kind of knight in shining armor, and to no fault of the lawyer, that's just not the way it works. And I really try to bring this like legal perspective to the table, because I know how lawyers think. I know how judges think. I know how the court process goes. I know what they want to hear, right? Like, I know the legal side of this, but I understand the lived experience of dealing with narcissists and high conflict personalities. So I try to integrate all of that into the daily kind of triage support and strategy. Like, you need strategy when you're dealing with these personalities. They're thinking 3 steps ahead. Yeah. You need to also be thinking 3 steps ahead. Mm-hmm. The court does not want you to come in and say, well, I'm married to a narcissist and he's, doing X, Y, and Z. Like, so I really try to help with the specific strategy of how to set yourself up with your attorney. I collaborate, and because your attorney also may not be well-versed in this disorder.
Yeah. So love what you're doing. And also it's called SWANS, right? So can you tell us what SWANS stands for?
Yes. And I will say right now, my website is SWANS Advocacy. It's changing. I'm kind of doing a rebrand. Yes. Ooh. It's going to be Divorce Strategy by Elise. I don't know my URL quite yet. I'm in the process, but SWANS is my mission. And SWANS stands for Supporting Women Against Narcissistic Spouses. And that is where my heart lies. Like, that is where my heart lies. I want to help empower women. Nobody deserves to deal with this personality. Nobody. There are always ways to help regain some control and power through the process. And I'm here for it.
I mean, I'm literally seeing the visual of 1,000-pound animal, maybe more, busting through a fence and you running into that.
I do. I run into chaos, man. I don't know why. I know why. I grew up in it. It's honestly, it's the blessing of the difficult upbringing I had. It has brought me full circle to now utilize in a way where I will run blindfolded into chaos and do it calmly. And I feel like it's a God-given gift at this point. I don't know where it comes from.
It's why trauma isn't all bad, and the things that we go through have positives too. I know that I got advice one time. Someone said, you have a high tolerance for chaos. And I was like, oh man, I know.
You're like, I don't want to hear that. Yeah.
She goes, why don't you monetize that instead of keep bringing it into your relationships? And I was like, and at the time, I think maybe it was right before I went into special education and emotional impairment, which is not what every teacher goes into, kind of my own way of running into things that people run out of. But it's the way of bringing purpose to what you've gone through.
Yeah,
so
you're right.
I'm so proud of you. So Elise, I have a few questions for you. These are the questions I ask all my guests so that people get a wide range. So tell us a belief about yourself that you've had to unlearn.
I suspected you might ask me this, so I thought about this. And a belief that I grew up with that I've had to unlearn recently, and I think I have, is that I have to perform to receive love. So I grew up only experiencing unconditional love. And it was always like, if I was the best, if I was a straight A student, if I got into the best school, if I became a lawyer, I went to get my MBA, if I just achieved, like that somehow validated me worthy of love. And I now know that I can just be loved for me. I don't have to do anything. I can love me. My husband will love me. The right person will love me just for who I am.
And no wonder you had the drill sergeant. My gosh. Right? That was a protective part of you to say, be perfect, do it right, perform perfectly, or
achieve something, or no one is going to love you. Right. Or you're not good enough. Yeah.
Ooh, the pressure. Okay. Love it. I love that for you, Elise. So what's a small daily practice that helps you feel connected to yourself?
So I can't say that I'm super great about doing this every day, but especially when I start to feel disconnected, and this is again through our work, and I really feel like the retreat that we did helped me with this. When I start to get too stuck in my head, I just kind of stop, and I take and I breathe, and I put my hand here, and I envision this little orb of light in my chest, because my chest is where I feel things. Like if my gut's talking to me, if there's something that's not right, I feel the tightness or I feel the discord. So like my chest is where my body talks to me. So I just like focus in on that area and I just breathe. And sometimes I just think about my breath and I just literally think of like connecting this to this. Like I'm just like, okay, let's reground. And it's taken practice and practice because I'm not the best at meditating. I'm not going to lie. Like it's been a challenge for me. Visualize meditating was a little bit easier. Like that helped me more, but this, at least breathing into like a vision of like this lightness in my chest, that will help ground me. So that's what I do when I start to feel like, oh.
Yeah, love that. Because when I met you, you were doing a lot of what I call neck upping, you know, like you were,
I lived
part of the performance part of you, you know? And so the fact that part of your daily practice is centering back into your body and you know, in our work, like often I'll be like, put your hand on your heart, hand on your heart. And hand on your heart just means we're connecting to your body. But I think also like, we know that's where the inner child lives.
Yeah. I think that's why I feel everything in my chest. And honestly, just touching my body, like the physical touch of my body, it has made a difference. Like it helps ground me. So that's kind of like the big, there's other little things, whether I go pet one of the horses or I read a book, like just to kind of like reconnect, or take a bath. I love taking baths, but like, when I start to feel that like I'm feeling overwhelm my nervous system, I do something like take a bath, breathe, go pet a horse, just something that grounds me. And it can take 2 minutes, you know, I think it's so necessary.
The go pet a horse thing. Not
everyone has that ability. I realize like I'm very blessed, but yes, I can see my horses in my,
I don't have
well, you
horse.
do.
Well, I don't have a horse, but the universe brought you and your animals into my life. So never underestimate, because Ranger, you brought Ranger into my life, which is the horse I talked about in a different episode, who I called my horse friend and had to tell everyone I'm grieving. Oh my God, my horse friend died. I didn't know you had a horse. Oh, it's not even my horse. It's my horse friend. But anyways.
Okay. He's everyone's horse.
He
belongs to no one but everyone. He was. That's what you're here for.
I was special, but he was special to me. So I love him. But what was one book that deeply impacted your personal growth?
Thought about this one too, because I tend to be a reader of fiction and because I like to kind of tune out. And but I did really start to embrace Wayne Dyer. And there's a book called The Power of Awakening, which is actually kind of a compilation of his books that someone else put together, but it's done in such a way that is like so relatable and so easy to read. And sometimes for as much as I'm an academic, sometimes like things that are too heady for me, like I just start to like zone out. So this was not one of those for me. Like it was very much about just your own things that a lot of us are already aware of, but he says it in such a way that helps you reflect. So reflect on your awareness, reflect on how you're reacting to something, reflect on how you're feeling to a certain behavior. It was just so well done and relatable in a way that was like easy to retain. So I love that book. Love.
I love everything Wayne Dyer. I've actually sat awesome. in your barns before and just listened to Wayne Dyer, but recommend anything. And I have read that as well. And it's amazing. I think they have like an Audible version too of kind of like his speaking engagements that you can listen to, but love Wayne Dyer. So okay, 2 more questions. Okay. What is a piece of advice that you have received that changed something for you?
The one that comes to mind the most, and this was actually something I received early in therapy, and then you also gave me one, it's a different one, but the one I received early in therapy is that the feelings of regret do not really serve us in life. And because I think if we can always feel that we have made the best decision at the time we're making a decision, and then when I say the best decision, that decision may not look like the best decision to you today. And it may be a version of yourself that in your mind today did not make a good decision. But at that given moment, it was what you had to make or chose to make. Well, that's the best you can do. That's the best any of us can do. So it's really been a way for me to kind of move forward and not like hang on to all of this stuff that has happened in my past, due to the baggage I carried with me and some of them the decisions I made or choices I made that I look back now and I'm like, oh man, that was not wise. But I try to let it go, and I try to give myself grace, because at the time it was the best that I could do. So that was some advice someone gave me once that I'm like, okay, that really helps take a load off. Honestly.
And I feel like, you learned from it all. Like,
absolutely. So what's to regret?
Exactly. So there is you did transmute it to wisdom, and you were doing the best you could with the tools and information you had at the time.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay. Love that.
And you taught me that two conflicting truths can be true at the same time. That was another big one for me. I can grieve something and still not have that person in my life by choice.
You can love a narcissist and still leave. You can love somebody and protect yourself, right? So, okay. Love that. Thank you. Last question. What is something you do now that your younger self would be proud of you for?
Oh, I mean, sitting here having this conversation with you, like, I can tap into that little kid in me, and she's just beaming, because I knew as a kid, like, I knew I was destined to do something, like, to help, but I just never knew how or what. And I always had a really strong, like, intuition that would talk to me. I couldn't always listen to it because of this environment I was in. So she would be really proud of me for following my gut all these years, even on the wayward paths, like, somewhere it took me. But yeah, she's proud of me for stepping into this role.
And you're so nicer to her.
So much nicer to her.
I think she'd be so proud that, like, she's got somebody that can listen to her.
I've got her back. She's got someone finally who's got her back.
Yeah, I love that. Well, Elise, thank you. This conversation is
so fun.
I know.
I feel like I could just, like, go on and on.
I told you, I'm like, it's just going to be us chatting. But this conversation is a reflection of what's possible when someone is really willing to look at their life, tell the truth, and look at what's not working and choose something different. So, Elise, like, of course, I cry every single time I have someone on that I worked with. But the privilege of watching what you've, like, I don't want to say become, because you were always this. Like, even when I first knew you, and what I knew of you is, like, you would keep people at a distance a little bit. Like, I didn't know you super well, even though we had a lot of interactions. I liked you a lot, but to deeply know you has been such a gift in my life. And not just watching your personal journey, but, like, again, you have brought in some profound relationships in my life. When we lost a couple animals that I loved on your farm as well, like, I think I called you crying. You had to tell me one of them died, and I was like, no.
I know. I feel like we've shown each other some life lessons for sure.
Yeah.
I just want to say, like, I thank you. I appreciate, like, all the kind words towards me, but I have to say, because it's your podcast and I truly feel this, and for your listeners, I say this to my husband, sees it. He has said it. And I obviously take credit for the work that I've done, but for you, Robin, I don't think I'd be in this place, but for you, like, it is. I know, like, I could cry, and I'm not a crier. So like, you have a gift, and it's profound. And so to anyone, whether it's someone's working with you one-on-one, that's amazing. But if not, just to be in your mental presence of what you talk about, it's a gift. Like, you just have a gift. So,
well, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. And, you're on the same path that I am, which is that it's a bumpy road, and you get to a place where all of the shit ends up aligning with your purpose, and we can't even force it. We just kind of have to show up, just like this. I never thought I would be a life and relationship coach ever in my life, and it kind of came to me. But then you get to have these type of relationships, and I get to pass the wisdom and insight that I've learned to someone else. And now you're doing the same thing. And I'm so proud of you, because I would love to do that, but it's so much work. Like, if I only worked in narcissistic dynamics, I don't know how much I'd have left in me. It's a lot.
Oh, yeah, it does. Yeah, it requires some boundaries for myself too. For sure. Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm so happy and proud that, like,
you're finding your lane. And I know you're someone who has multiple lanes, like you competitively ride and you have your animals and you own other businesses and all of the things. So thank you for being brave enough to listen to Christine and walk into a barn with me and sit down. Thank you for letting me come to your property, for letting me love your animals. I'm about to do a brand photo shoot on your property. I feel like I might even sprinkle a couple of my ashes over there in that property one day if you'll allow me. But man, I mean, it's you and I are such an example of the universe knows exactly what it's doing, and it will happen at the right time. And we don't need to overthink it. You just show up, and these beautiful things happen. So, I've always wanted to have you on the podcast, waiting for the right moment. Today is it. Great. So, tell us where we can access you. I'm loving the content you're putting out on Instagram. So, how do people connect with you?
Yeah, so my Instagram and my Facebook handles are and then it's Elise Iafrate, which is IAFRATE, divorce. And I'm on TikTok as well. And right now my current website is swans, as in the animal, and then advocacy.com. And that'll ultimately change, but I think you can still be redirected to the new one through there. So you can email me there and we can do consults and all the things. So I'm available to speak to whoever, even wants to just explore what's going on for them.
Or even one step might be just watching the videos you put out.
Oh yeah, of course.
Amazing.
Yeah, I try to put out useful content. So.
Okay. Well, Elise, thank you for being here with us. And I hope that your story, my story, and everything you shared today helps at least one person feel less alone in these type of dynamics. And if you're interested in working with Elise or connecting with her, we'll put all her info below. And, I do this every episode too. Love to have you back sometime because this was fun. So keep us up to date with what you got going on. And when you're ready to, promote something, we would love to have you back. But
awesome.
Thank you. And we'll see everybody next week. Bye.
Okay. Bye.
That's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for being here and for doing this work. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Come connect with me over on TikTok at Robin Breckenridge or Instagram at Coach with Robin, where I share even more insights, tools, and conversations around boundaries, self-trust, relational healing, and so much more. And just a quick reminder, this podcast is for educational and personal growth purposes only. The insights and tools I share are based on my experience as a life and relationship coach and are meant for general guidance. Each person's story is unique, and the nuances of individual experiences can't always be addressed in this format. What's shared here may not be applicable to every situation, especially those involving abuse, oppression, severe mental illness, or systematic harm. If you or someone you know is in crisis, please seek support from a qualified mental health professional or emergency resources. Thank you for listening and for showing up for yourself in this way. Take care, and I'll see you next time.